Elisabeth Fritzl vanished at 18. Her father said she joined a cult. For 24 years, no one questioned it, but beneath his quiet Austrian home, he built a secret prison where she gave birth to 7 children. This isn't fiction, this is one of the most disturbing true crime stories in modern history, a monster hiding in plain sight, and a woman who survived the unthinkable. It was a pale yellow house with blue shutters, neat, quiet, indistinguishable from every other home on the cobbled street in Amstetten, Austria, 3 stories, a tidy garden. The kind of place that made neighbors nod politely but never ask. Too many questions. In the summer, flowers bloomed along the windowsills. In the winter, the curtains stayed drawn. What no one knew, not the mailman, not the police, not even the children playing next door, was that beneath that house, behind a steel-reinforced door in a maze of hidden corridors, a girl had been kept prisoner for 24 years. Her name was Elisabeth Fritzl, and she was held by her own father. Elisabeth was born in 1966, the 4th of 7 children to Josef and Rosemarie Fritzl. She was shy, polite. She loved animals, drawing, and reading under the covers late at night. And like most children in Austria at the time, she was taught that obedience came before everything, especially to her father. Josef Fritzl was a man of contradictions. Outwardly, he was a disciplined, accomplished engineer, a father who valued education and order. He built homes, filed permits, read newspapers cover to cover. He was the kind of man who didn't talk much but expected to be listened to. At home, he was rigid, punitive, cold. The Fritzl children feared him, but no one truly understood the depth of what Elisabeth endured, not even her own mother, because from the age of 11, Josef had begun to abuse her in secret. It started with accidental touches, then closed-door scoldings, then worse. By 14, Elisabeth wanted to run away. By 15, she had, but she came back. In 1984, just shy of her 18th birthday, Elisabeth told her mother she had a job interview lined up. She promised to call. Then she vanished. Her parents reported her missing. Flyers were posted. Police questioned friends, but weeks later, Josef arrived at the local station with a letter. A handwritten note, supposedly from Elisabeth, saying she had joined a cult, that she was fine, that she didn't want to be found. The case was closed. What the police didn't know, what no one could imagine, was that Josef had lured Elisabeth into the basement, under the pretense of helping him carry a door. Then, once she was inside, he turned, he drugged her, he handcuffed her, and then he locked the door behind her. Elisabeth woke up in the dark. The air was damp, the walls were cold concrete. A single bare bulb buzzed above her, casting a yellow glow that didn't reach the corners. There was no window, no way out, and when the drugs were off, the realization set in. She was underground, alone, locked inside a hidden soundproof cellar built by the very man who had raised her. Josef had spent years constructing the basement. He told his wife and neighbors it was for nuclear protection, a fallout shelter in case of war. He filed the permits, dug the hole, installed doors and steel-reinforced walls. What he never said was that he was building a personal prison. To reach the final room, the one where Elisabeth was kept, you had to open a steel outer door, descend a narrow hallway, move a rolling shelf that concealed another door, punch in a code to unlock a hidden latch, crawl through a narrow tunnel. Then, and only then, did you reach the final chamber. A suffocating underground bunker just 5.5 feet high, with no windows, poor ventilation, and just one bathroom sink. This was where Elisabeth would live, not for days, not for weeks, but for 24 years. It began with fear. She cried, screamed, beat her fists against the door, begged for help. No one heard her. Josef brought food, blankets, books, and rules. He told her he was the only one who would ever love her, that the police would never believe her, that he had rigged the room with electric traps and gas lines, and if she tried to escape, she would die. Then came the abuse. Over the next weeks, then months, Josef repeatedly raped Elisabeth, controlled her food, dictated her routines, and when she became pregnant, he did nothing. There was no doctor, no hospital, no pain relief. Just a concrete floor and a dirty towel. In 1988, Elisabeth gave birth to her first child, Kirsten, in darkness, screaming through the labor with no one but her father there to witness it. By 2008, when the case would finally explode into public view, Elisabeth had 7 children. 3 of them, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, lived with her in the cellar. The other 3 were taken upstairs, left at the doorstep, or found by Josef, who told Rosemarie that Elisabeth had dropped them off to be raised in safety. One infant died shortly after birth. Josef disposed of the body in a furnace. He controlled everything. He fed them, punished them, played God over a world no one else knew existed. Outside, Josef was seen as a respectable retiree. He traveled, paid bills, had dinner with his wife. Inside, he was running the most unfathomable prison ever constructed in suburban Austria, and no one suspected a thing. The first sound her children ever heard was the hum of pipes. No birds, no wind, no voices except their mothers, no sunlight, only fluorescent bulbs, and the steady shuffle of rats in the walls. Kirsten, born in 1988, was the first. Then came Stefan, then Felix, a baby who cried too loudly at first until the silence of the cellar swallowed his innocence. All three were born and raised underground, never stepping foot outside for years. Their world was made of concrete, mildew, and the voice of a mother who whispered bedtime stories while bleeding silently. Elisabeth tried to make it livable. She taught them to read, told them stories about the sky, played games with shadows, kept time on a stolen wristwatch to create a rhythm in a place where clocks held no meaning. They had a tiny television, their only window to the world, old VHS tapes, educational programs, music they could hum but never experience. She told them about mountains and trains, bees and snow, how the sky could go black and then blue again, but they didn't understand. How could they? They had never seen the sun. Meanwhile, upstairs, Josef Fritzl continued his illusion to neighbors. He was stern but smart, a handyman, a provider, a bit gruff, but harmless. He told his wife that Elisabeth had run away to a cult, and when her letters arrived, allegedly written by her, Rose Marie believed it. And when 3 babies were mysteriously left on their doorstep over the years, with notes from Elisabeth saying she couldn't care for them, she believed that, too. Lisa, Monica, and Alexander were raised in the upstairs world, going to school, seeing doctors, playing in parks, while their siblings lived in a prison below. It was a surreal double life. 2 families, 1 house, 1 monstrous lie. Josef was careful. He threatened Elisabeth constantly. He warned the children that if they disobeyed, the room would explode, that their mother would be electrocuted, that upstairs was filled with dangerous people who would kill them all if they were discovered. And so, year after year, they stayed quiet. They complied until Kirsten, the eldest, fell sick, and the entire nightmare began to unravel. It was April 2008, and Kirsten was dying. She had developed a kidney infection that turned into something worse. Her body began to seize. She couldn't speak. She collapsed on the cellar floor and wouldn't wake up. For Elisabeth, it was a choice between fear and love. She begged her father, please, take her to a hospital. She knew it could expose everything, but Kirsten was slipping away. For the first time in 24 years, Josef cracked. He took Kirsten up through the maze of tunnels, out the hidden door, into the real world. She was unconscious, pale, barely breathing. At Amstetten hospital, doctors were stunned. A teenage girl, dehydrated, malnourished, with severely underdeveloped teeth, organs, and immune function, showed up without any identification. No family, no records, just a note from a woman claiming to be her mother. Doctors alerted police immediately. The town buzzed with confusion. Who was the girl? Why did she look like she'd never been outside? Authorities appealed to the public, asking the anonymous mother to come forward. They released parts of the note. They posted flyers. They even made a public broadcast begging for more information. But inside the cellar, Elisabeth watched the news on the tiny TV. And for the first time in decades, she saw a crack of light. She made a decision that would change everything. She told Josef, if you want to save Kirsten, let me out. Let me see her. Let me speak. He agreed. He had no idea what would follow. On April 26, 2008, Elisabeth stepped into daylight for the first time in 8,516 days. She was brought to the hospital, under heavy secrecy, to speak to doctors about her daughter's condition. But police were watching. They had already begun suspecting Josef's story didn't add up. The notes, the timing, the girl's medical condition, nothing made sense. When Elisabeth was separated from her father for the first time in decades, a female officer sat with her and whispered, "You're safe now. You don't have to lie anymore." And Elisabeth broke down. Over 2 hours, she poured out the entire story: the basement, the rapes, the pregnancies, the dead baby, the threats, the fear, the children. Everything. Officers stared, stunned. One wrote later, "It sounded like a horror movie, except she was sitting right in front of us." Josef Fritzl was arrested the same day. He denied nothing. "I always knew this would come to light someday," he reportedly told investigators. When police asked why he did it, he simply said, "She was 18, I was tempted." Within hours, the Austrian press descended on Amstetten, and by the next day, the entire world knew: the house, the cellar, the father, the daughter, the 7 children, the lie that lasted 24 years. The news hit Austria like an earthquake. House of horror, 24 years in hell, father monster imprisoned his own daughter outside the Fritzl house. Crowds gathered, some held candles, others screamed. One man spat on the front gate. People left. Flowers for the children who never knew the sky. Inside the hospital, Elisabeth sat beside Kirsten, still unconscious, holding her hand and whispering songs she'd made up in the cellar. Across the corridor, her other children, Stefan and Felix, wide-eyed and pale, were seeing sunlight for the first time. Doctors had to issue them sunglasses to prevent eye damage. Their skin blistered in daylight. They stared out the windows like they were looking at another planet, because they were. Authorities brought in trauma specialists, psychologists, and child protection teams from all over Europe. The family was placed in a secure facility with 24/7 care. Elisabeth was reunited with Lisa, Monica, and Alexander, the 3 children raised in the normal world upstairs. It wasn't joyful at first. The siblings didn't speak the same, didn't understand the same roles, had never met. One group grew up with bikes and schoolbooks, the other learned to whisper to survive. Still, they were together, and for Elisabeth, that was everything. The town of Amstetten was in denial. How could no one have known? Neighbors remembered Josef as private, cold, intimidating. Some recalled seeing him buy extra groceries, install new locks, or spend long nights in the basement. But no one ever thought to ask questions. He had filed permits for his secret space, told authorities it was a storm shelter. He was a master of misdirection. In March 2009, the trial of Josef Fritzl began. A circus of press descended on the courtroom. Survivors were protected, their names shielded, but everyone watched as the man in the gray suit walked in, calm as ever. He faced charges of murder for the infant who died, rape, incest, kidnapping, false imprisonment, slavery. Evidence was overwhelming. He pled guilty. When asked if he had any final words before sentencing, Josef looked down and said, "I regret it. I cannot make it right. I will spend the rest of my life reflecting." The judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. He showed no visible emotion. The Fritzl home was sealed, boarded, and later auctioned, though no one wanted it. The basement was filled in with concrete. The dungeon was erased, but the trauma lived on. Elisabeth and her children were given new identities, new lives, and new house, this time with real windows and doors that opened. They chose a place near the mountains, where the skies were wide, where no one whispered their names for years. They didn't speak publicly, but one therapist later said, "They don't want to be known for what was done to them, they want to be known for surviving it." The world moved on, but in every discussion of human darkness, of hidden monsters behind closed doors, the name Fritzl remains, not just as a story of horror, but as a testament to the strength of a girl who refused to disappear.